King Charles's former communications secretary says that the monarch made his cancer diagnosis public last night to show that anybody can be affected by the condition.
Yes, Kristina Kyriacou worked for the King between 2009 and 2016, and during this time had her own experience with cancer, and says the King was incredibly supportive. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in.
So that's very interesting that he has been, you know, you worked with him for years and went through this yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I was diagnosed with breast cancer the year that William and Catherine got married, and we were in an enormously busy period. I mean, the King is a workaholic, and I didn't really want to reveal my diagnosis. I love my job so much. I didn't want anything to stop the working day. And so I found that my cancer experience was easier to get through by working full-time. When the King found out,
how did you find out?
I think someone must have said behind the scenes, as people do. And when he found out, he immediately was very concerned that I had the best advice, and was there anything he could do to prompt, you know, better advice, or should I really be there with him? And, you know, but I think he realised that I have the same indefatigable spirit, and that working as hard as I did was just keeping me positive and getting me through.
And for those people, because talking about the King having cancer, he's obviously a unique individual in terms of the speed of diagnosis and treatment. But there will be plenty of other people, I think it's, you know, hundreds, possibly 1,000 a day, going to be diagnosed with cancer. What advice would you say to people watching this morning who might be worried about going to the doctor, worried about getting treatment, worried about what to do? What would your advice be?
Well, I think the interesting thing about this story is the King didn't know that he had cancer. He went in for a relatively routine procedure with the enlarged prostate, and it was announced that that was a benign procedure, and everyone thought he was fine. And so he went to get something checked out, and I understand that from that statement, there's been a flurry of people looking up what a enlarged prostate is, and looking to see if their symptoms could be something similar, and going to get checked out. So that's the first thing. That statement in itself allowed people to think, wow, maybe I shouldn't just leave this. And then he's gone to get that checked out, and later has found out that there is actually cancer somewhere else in his body. So I'm hoping that gives hope to a lot of people that if there's something wrong, just go and get it checked out. And if you still don't feel right, pursue it.
Now, everybody takes this kind of news differently when it's presented to them. You have cancer. Everybody takes it differently. You know the Prince extremely well. How do you think he'll have taken it?
I think he'll have been philosophical. I think he will be curious. Every single challenge or every single circumstance that has affected him or his public, he's been curious about and wanted to find out more. So I would say that a phrase that was given to me, which is, you will come out enlightened rather than frightened when you come out the other side of cancer, I think will be relevant to him. He loves his alternative medicines. He loves looking at alternative treatments, acupuncture, homeopathy. He will look at a blend. Obviously, he's having traditional treatment for the cancer that he's got, but he will also use this as an opportunity to be more enlightened about the condition, so he can be even more effective to his public, and with the patronages like Macmillan Cancer Care that he currently holds.
And what about the reaction of those around him? Not just his family, but those that he works with. People like you, for example, if he was still there. I mean, we see the great ship of state proceeding calmly on, unflurried, people stepping into the gap for the time being and all the rest of it. But what will the atmosphere be like at the palace once this news was revealed to them?
I think there will be sadness, because everyone wants to think that he'll go on forever. And so I think there'll be a degree of sadness and shock. But I think once people actually see the King, and certainly his immediate family who know him, they will know that he will just want to keep moving, and he will be positive, and he will get through this. So I think normality will return pretty quickly. The Queen will be key because she'll hold him back from doing too much. And of course, William, his liege man of honour from the coronation, will be key, because William will need to step forward and take over some things from his father and insist that he takes them over during this period.
It's so interesting listening to you speak. You have such insider knowledge of what happens, particularly as a former communications secretary, which means you're the link between the monarchy and the country in terms of the message. How do you decode the message that is coming out? Very clear he has cancer. Very clear it's not prostate, because, of course, if it was discovered during that treatment for prostate enlargement, everybody would have speculated it was prostate cancer. Yeah. So they've ruled that out. But no explanation of what the cancer is. And as we've said on the programme, we're not demanding to know, entitled to know. Everybody has the right to privacy. But they've opened the door, and that means people will speculate.
Yes. Susanna, I think the way Buckingham Palace and the King have dealt with this has been exemplary. I have to say that I wouldn't open the door more. They've said a form of cancer has been found, and I personally wouldn't have advised that you go further and say which type of cancer it is. I think there's plenty of time for that. The trouble is, the more information you give, the more people speculate. So the second they know what form of cancer it is, everyone starts looking it up, Googling, oh, I knew someone, and this happened to them, this is what he'll be going through, blah. We know that he's ill. He's got a type of cancer, and it's going to be treated. I'm taking that statement as a very positive statement that it's treatable. I hope I'm right.
So if you were still there, you would be strongly advising not to reveal the exact nature of the cancer.
I absolutely would, because I think there's time for that. And also, one should remember at this point that the monarchy try not to become the story. I know in some ways that's been a little bit laughable with certain members of the royal family in the past couple of years, but Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles, or King Charles now, they do not want to become the story. They still want to serve their public. So in the fullness of time, I would like to think that King Charles will talk about his treatment and use his learnings and his experience to talk to others who've had a similar form of cancer or similar treatment.
And what about his relationship with Harry? We've heard that Harry may well be in the air right now. Certainly he's coming over promptly. He's obviously that concerned. Do you see this, again, with your intimate knowledge of what it's like in there, do you see this as an opportunity for a rapprochement between the two of them, and possibly even a rapprochement with William, between Harry and William?
I hope so. The King adores Harry. And I think that's always been clear. He absolutely adores him. I mean,
even when he was speaking to Oprah Winfrey and publicising his book? He
adores him. Seriously, Richard, I worked in the royal household when the King was sending care packages every week to Afghanistan and literally fussing about what would make Harry laugh, what were the things that he loved eating.
What did he put in the care packages?
All sorts of different things, absolutely all sorts of different things. And he put so much thought into it. You know, he wanted to make him laugh. He knew all the music that he liked that used to drive him mad at Highgrove. And he'd think. He adores his sons and he will want to see his grandchildren. He didn't want any of this estrangement. And everyone thought it was right to allow Harry and Meghan to go and live their life in the States as they wanted to. No one expected all of this. So if out of bad news, some good news comes and Harry and the King and the Queen and his brother are reunited,
so
how wonderful is that?
You think that the King, and you would know, is absolutely ready and waiting to forgive Harry for everything that he's said about the family, all the implications and insinuations that have been made and direct accusations. He's prepared to put it all behind him and start again. Knowing
the King as I do, I would say his forgiveness and his empathy for everybody beggars belief. And I think you've had your own Kate Garraway sit here and say the comforting words and words of reassurance he independently chose to give to her. Yes. And I have seen that time and time again with members of the public that he's just met by chance. He will then get back to the palace and say, Tom, the person that I met on the receiving line, the person that I met at this engagement in Bradford, I need to get him some information. Or he said he liked Eccles cakes. His empathy and his sensitivities are such that he will not want an estrangement with his dear son.
You're very fond of him, aren't you?
I'm really fond of him. I honestly can say it was a very, very, very hard job, but he was the most wonderful person to work for. And I've never, ever looked back with any regret.
Well, Kristina, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sure you join us in wishing him, you know, swift recovery.
I certainly do, Susanna, and thank you both very much.
Yeah,
thank you
good
for your
to
time.
see you
Thank
this
you.
morning. It's interesting what you say about, you know, does he forgive his son? Is it going to be... I mean, literally, I've got 3 boys. They can say anything. They could write anything. They could do... And I'll always love them.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a scenario in which, however badly, you know, Prince Harry has spoken about members of his family, that the king wouldn't continue to love him, support him. And I don't even think it's about forgiveness. I'm not sure that he ever...
Well, except that
needed
there are
to do that.
But there are estrangements. You're absolutely right, and I have to say, I'm sure I would be the same.
Yeah.
I really hope that I would. I'm sure I would. But not everybody's like that.
No.
You know, there are estrangements
Well, that
within
breaks my heart.
families,
That
sadly.
breaks my heart, yeah.